If you're wondering why this tutorial is so long, it's because this is actually a class from my Skillshare. I wanted to share one class here so everyone can see the difference of YouTube tutorials and Skillshare classes. Anyways, if you like these in-depth classes, there is more on my Skillshare. Link is in the description of this video. Okay, let's start from the very beginning by opening up Photoshop and then go to File, New to create a new file. Now, here we can set the size and everything. So let's do widescreen, like 1920 by 1080. The resolution doesn't matter because resolution is only for printing. So 72 is fine. Press create. And let's start with importing our book first. So we can just drag this book here and put it in this file. Now we can really easily remove the background by going to select and then clicking on subject. So this is a pretty good way to quickly remove background from images. And you can see here the selection, it does a pretty good job with this. And the only thing we have to do now is to just press here on the mask and we have our selection of our book. Now, I'm gonna make sure this is a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna press Ctrl or Command on Mac and T to bring up the free transform window. And then I can just resize this and put it somewhere in the middle. I want to create a path going inside this book here. So I want to make sure the path is a little bit in the middle. So let's move it a bit to the right. So something like this is fine. We can always change it later on. Right, so let's now import our road. This is this image. Also just drag it in this file, press enter, and we have it here. Now for this one, we don't need to remove the background because we're gonna use this. So I'm gonna just drag it underneath it. So it's like behind it. Press Ctrl or Command to make T to bring free transform and put it something like this. So we make sure this road goes inside this book in the center. You can also use the other side if you want the page, but I'm just gonna do it like this. Something like this. And now this road goes a little bit up. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna hold down Shift and take this one point here and bring it down to flatten this a little bit like that. So we see a bit more like going straight back instead of up. This will make it look better. Just a little bit like that. Right? So this is okay. Now we need to make sure this road is visible inside this book. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on the mask of this book here. So not the layer, but the mask. Then select the brush and we can just brush this away and make it visible. But maybe it's better to make like some sort of circle enter of this. And let's click on the mask of it and select this elliptical marquee tool. And now I want to make like this circle, and this will be like the portal of this book. So something like this. Leave a little bit of these areas on the left and right side so it doesn't really go all the way to the edge. Something like this is fine. Then click on the mask. Press D on your keyboard so you have white and black here. D is for default. And then just hold down Control and press backspace or Command and backspace on Mac. And we have our entrance for this world here. So that's pretty easy to do. You can also just maybe make it a bit like that. So we have a bit more space to enter this portal. That and just get rid of it. Just make sure it's in the middle and not like to the sides. Something like this. I think this is fine. Right, so let's leave it like this. Now, next thing to do is we need to get rid of this grass here. I don't want to use this grass here and here. I only want to use it inside this book. So what I'm going to do is we're going to create a mask on this layer and then just select a soft round brush from your general brushes and select the black color. Make it a little bit smaller so you don't mess this up. Only the sides here, and let's just brush a bit away here. Just make sure don't go inside this book, just outside this book to brush these parts away. And also on this side, get rid of all that grass. I don't want to use that grass. We're gonna add another grass for the outside of this book. So something like this is fine. Just brush a bit here. It doesn't have to be perfect because We will fix later. We will fix this later to make it better. So this is fine for now. All right, so I found this grass, this one. Just drag it in your file and make sure the width goes all the way to the edges here. The top part here doesn't matter because we are going to create another sky than this one. So we're not going to use this one. So let's put it here. So we'll make sure it's all the way to the edges. Now drag it underneath the file. So it's underneath this road thing. And now just make a mask here and select the gradient tool. Press D on your keyboard to make sure this is white and black as colors. And just hold on shift and make this line from down from the bottom to the top like that. So we can get rid of that sky, maybe even like this. Create something else in the background later. Right, so this is the basic idea. Now let's also import our boy. I have this image of this little boy that I want to add to this composite. Let me find it. This, and just also drag it in the file, then go to select subject. And this way it's gonna select this boy really quickly and we don't have to waste time cutting them out. If this doesn't work, if you have older version of Photoshop, it might not work that well, but if it doesn't work, try to remove the background of this boy with the pen tool. That's the best way. Right, now let's make this smaller by pressing Ctrl or Command T again, and just drag it like that to make sure we have like realistic sizes of this whole thing. So I don't make him too big. If he's bigger, it needs to be closer here. If he's smaller, it needs to be a little bit farther away. Let's make sure that he's like entering this portal or something. So this is fine for now. All right, let's start with making this book a little bit better in this composite. So we need to make sure this area here, the grass is gonna go over this book instead of it looks like it's floating now. So we need to make sure we get rid of it. For this, we're going to use brushes in the legacy brushes folder. This is standard from Photoshop. In the older version, I think it's already somewhere in the general brushes or something. But try to find these brushes in your Photoshop. You have here Dune grass and grass. Let's use Dune grass because we have like these long pieces of grass. Now, once you select this Dune grass brush, press on this icon here. We're gonna get these brush settings here. And now we want to deselect the color dynamics here. We don't need those. Right, so let's close this here. Press D on your keyboard to make sure this is white to black. But we actually need black, so I'm gonna rotate this or flip it, whatever it's called. Right, so let's make the brush smaller. You can also make the brush smaller here with the size. And make sure it's going up like these things. Right, and the only thing we have to do is to just brush this a little bit like that. Just brush this away. Maybe also here. So we have like this idea of this grass is going over this book. So it doesn't look like it's floating in the air anymore. Now it looks like this book is like like inside this grass. If that makes sense. And make it a bit bigger so we can make a little bit extra grass thingies here like that. So it looks a little bit more real instead of using the same pattern like that. Right, so this is fine. Right, let's also import our background. I mean the sky here. So I'm going to use this image. You can actually use other images for the sky. It doesn't really matter, but I like this warm sky here, so I'm going to use this one. Okay, now one important thing here. If you look at this image of this boy, you can see we have lighting coming from the left side from the sun. So we need to make sure our background lighting is also going to be coming from that side, from the left side. You can see in this image we have sun here. So what I'm going to do is now go to edit, transform, and flip horizontal. And that way I have a sun now here on the left side, exactly like this boy. Let's make this bigger. So we need to make sure it fits the whole area. Maybe even bigger like that. Right, so this is fine because this is important when you want to make it look more real. You need to make sure the lighting is right. And instead of like brushing this away and trying to fix that, try to use images with lighting on the side where it originally came from. That will save you a lot of time. All right, let's now work on the lighting and shadows. First of all, this boy needs a shadow on this side because we have lighting here. It's gonna hit him here. So we have a shadow here, right? So The best way to do this, the easiest way, is to just select this boy layer, press Ctrl or Command J to duplicate it. Now I'm just gonna make a new layer on top of it, hold on Shift and select both of these layers and press Ctrl E. So I have like this rasterized layer of this boy. Now, next thing to do is to go to Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical. Drag this layer underneath the boy and hold on Shift so stays in the center while you drag it. And press Ctrl or Command U to bring up the hue and saturation and bring the lightness all the way down. And that way we have this black shadow, and it's really easy. Press OK. Now we need to make sure the shadow goes that way and not like to the bottom. So what I'm going to do is press Ctrl or Command T to bring up the free transform window again. Let's zoom in here. And while holding down Ctrl or Command, stretch out one corner that way, then take the other one, stretch it out that way, and make sure it starts at the feet from the position of the feet instead of there. Right, so this is fine. Something like this. It doesn't have to be perfect, just a bit of a shadow like that. Let's see, let's also make it a bit smaller so it doesn't get too fat in the shadow. We have sunset lighting. When you have sunset lighting, the shadow needs to be longer because the sunset is like closer to the horizon. When you have daylight, the shadow needs to be shorter. Right, so keep that also in mind. Let's move it like that. I think this is fine. Maybe his head looks a bit weird now, but whatever. I think this is fine. Now, to make this look more real, what you could do is to blur out the end part. When you have shadows like this part will be sharp and this will be blurred out. Now, we can easily do that by going to the blur gallery here and select field blur. And this is all on the layer of this boy. Now, here we can set the amount of blur. So first, let's leave it at 0. Click here, so we have 0 blur there. And when we click another time here, we can give this area a bit more blur. Let's not do it too much. Just a bit like that to make this look more real. Let's move this here, so we have 0 blur there. Right, so press enter and that's it. And the only thing I have to do now is to just drop the opacity. His head looks a little bit big now, so I'm gonna make this a bit smaller. So his head doesn't get too big from this shadow. So that's it. That's pretty easy to make a shadow. And you can also, need to go back. You can also do it more perfect by getting rid of this little part there. But those are little details that you can do to make it better. It's gonna take a lot of time to actually do this really precisely. So I'm gonna leave it like this for now to just give you the idea of the shadow. So we have shadow now. Let's make it a bit darker. And what I would like to do now is to also make this side of this boy a bit darker, the right side. So what I'm going to do now is create a curve on top of it. Press this, so we only affect the layer underneath it. And let's bring this down. And also the midtones, so we have more contrast, not too much. Now select the brush. Make sure you select the soft round normal brush. And select the black color. With black we can remove it. Make sure to press on the mask of it. And let's remove it on this side. Maybe also a bit here on his feet. Like that. Right, so we have one side now darker. Maybe even darker like that. So this looks fine to me. Now let's also make sure we have shadows and stuff in the grass. So for the grass, this one, let's also create the curves on this grass layer. Make sure to press this again and make it dark first. And now we can make areas light again. We have lighting here, so I want to make sure this will be light. Like that. Maybe also here. But this area here will stay dark because the book is blocking the light from there. Right, so something like this. All right, let's also make the book a little bit darker. So I'm going to create the curves again. And do the same for this book. Don't do it too much, just a bit. Now the book is blocking all this light, so the only part we have to make lighter is like just a little bit here. Not too much. And that's it. All right, let's also make this road here a bit darker. So I'm going to do the same. Curves again. Press this. Just take the highlights and bring them down. Take a brush again. And the book is going to go like this, the shadow. So we need to make sure It's gonna be a bit like this. Let's leave this area also dark here at the grass because the grass is also blocking the light a bit here. All right, now we can work on the colors. This boy, let's first put all these files into all these layers into folders so it doesn't get too difficult to find stuff. So just select both of these layers, actually three layers. We have this shadow. While holding down shift and selecting them, press on this little folder or command or control G, J. And if we have this group now and then this boy, let's do the same for this book. This is our book. Let's do the same for this. This is our road. And this is our grass. And this is our sky. Let's put it there. Right, so now we have like organized file. All right, let's work on the colors here. This boy, this red from this boy is way too red. So to blend things better together, the only thing for color blending, the only thing you have to do is to actually drop the colors of it. So select this layer of this boy, then go here and select hue in saturation. And the only thing you have to do is make sure this is pressed. And the only thing you have to do is to take the middle slider from the saturation and bring it a bit down. And you can see here the difference. When it's like this, it's really red. When I drop it like this, it's gonna be less colorful and it makes this image blend better together. Right, so let's also do the same for this grass. So while holding down Control, I just click on this grass and I have selected this grass layer. That's also really easy. Also here in situation, take this one and bring it a bit down. Let's not do too much or else it's gonna get really desaturated. Let's also do the same for this book. Press on the layer of this book, use saturation, and get rid of these colors a bit. Not much. And let's also do it a bit for the sky to make sure we have like everywhere this effect. Not too much or else it's gonna get really desaturated. And also for this road here, bring it down. Let's see, something like this. Right? So that's really easy to do. Okay, so the next thing I would like to do here is I want to create this area inside this book a bit more exciting because we have like these dunes here going on. It's nothing special there. So I want to make sure there's something exciting going on inside this new kind of world in this book, right? So for this, I have like this castle image that we can use. You can use any other castle image that you want and just drag it in this road folder I have here. So this is on top of the road layer, right? So let's make sure it fits this image. Make sure the edges here are inside this hole we have, like that. Just make like this. Make sure you see the castle. And now just take a brush, create a mask on this layer from this castle, and take the black color, use a normal brush. You can bring the opacity flow all the way up and start brushing these road back. So we can just, you can also do it like this if you want. This also looks pretty nice, but maybe I think I want to have a real different kind of area inside this book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush this road. So only the edges, like this road is going somewhere there inside this castle, right? So something like this. And you can see how easy it is to change the whole idea of this image. And that's pretty much it. We have like now this road going inside this new kind of world. You can do it really precise if you want. Need to zoom in here a bit, maybe brush here, like this road's going over all these trees here, like that. And just do a bit of a brushing. And that's pretty much it. We have like this cool world now inside this fairy tale book. All right, let's also change the setting here, the lighting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create hue situation inside this book and get rid of these colors just a little bit like we did before. And also create the curves to make it a bit lighter. I feel like it's a bit too dark inside this book. And let's give it a bit more contrast, like that. So that's pretty easy. And now we have like this cool thing going on inside this book. All right, let's also work on the lighting from this here. I want to have it like more spectacular than now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on the lighting. So light effects, let's close all these folders so we don't get confused. Let's make a new folder and double click on it and name it lighting. Now we can create a new layer here inside this folder. Then go to your brushes here, select the soft round brush and click on the color here. So we get a color picker and let's pick something from the sky, a bit yellowish like this. This is fine. Press OK. Let's make the brush bigger. And now you need to make sure that the opacity and flow is all the way at 100 and the hardness is at 0, right? And just make a dot in the center. And that will be our light source. And if we take the move tool here, we can press Ctrl T to or Command T to make the free transform thing. Hold down Alt or Option on Mac and make it big like this. Then go to here, change normal to screen. And with screen we get a really cool like this light effect from this sun now. Right? So just try out different spots. Maybe you like it here. You can also press Ctrl J to duplicate it if you want even more this cool lighting and just move it around to see where it fits best. I want to have like a bit more on the grass and a bit more towards the book like that. And you can see the difference before and after we get really cool lighting now. All right, let's also do more to this book here inside it. Okay, so the entrance of this book, this thing here, it doesn't look real now. It looks really fake to me. So we need to have a little bit more like three-dimensional thing going on. So let's first make a layer underneath the book layer. So for this, it's better to just press the map underneath it, create a new layer, and drag it underneath it. So it's in the same folder. So we don't get like a messy file. Right now, if we hold down Control or Command and Make and press on the mask of this book, we get a selection. But we need to make the selection a little bit more like bigger than this. So what I'm going to do is go to Select, Modify, and Expand. So we can expand the selection. If you want to make the selection smaller, we can use Contract. But for this, we need to make the selection a little bit more like that way, right? So we're gonna use Expand here. And here we can set the amount of pixels we want to expand this book. So this is, I think 20 is fine for this one. So I'm gonna press OK. And you can see we have now this selection inside this book, like this perfect selection. And the only thing I have to do now is to just select the brush, bring the opacity flow all the way up, and let's just first make it black. And let's just brush this black like that, right? So the color we can change after it. Just want to make sure first that we can see this really well. All right, maybe at the bottom here, bring the hardness a bit up. So we need to have like this normal bottom. All right, so if we press this, press right mouse, deselect, we have like this thing. Okay, but this thing doesn't look real now. It looks too much brush. So what I'm going to do is to press Ctrl D to make it bigger. Hold down Alt like that. And let's make it, let's see, we have this book. I think it's better if we either do it like this or you can do it like this. Maybe this is better to make it look real. Or you can do it like this. Let's do it like this. I like it like this. Right, so we have now this entrance and this looks way more real than it was before. All right, and now we can just brush these parts away to make this look better, of course. So we don't affect this grass, and especially here, don't need it here. So this is fine. Now, it's a bit too black for me, so what I'm going to do is double click on this layer, go to color overlay, click on this, and let's see, maybe something like this, a bit darker. Some tones from this book, maybe a bit grayish, like that. Just play around with these settings until you like a color. Just make sure it's a bit dark. Right, so this is fine. Press OK. And now you can eventually make it maybe even smaller if you want. This all depends on what you like to do. Now, to make this even better, we can also just make a mask here and do some grass brushing here again like we did before to blend this even better. So this is just little details that will make your design look a lot better at the end when you're done. All right, so this looks fine to me. There's one thing I always like to do to make an image look better, and that is to create some depth in this image. And there is a really easy trick to create depth, and that is just to put things like really close to the camera and blur them out. And that's all you have to do to create a bit more like depth in this image and make it look more real. So for this, I'm going to create a new folder on top of everything. So that's important. And call this, let's call it depth. And I have this image here of a tree that I can use. You can find this tree also in the project files, but you can actually use anything that you want because you're blurring it out. So drag it in a file. Let's zoom out here a bit and make it really big and put it like maybe something like this, just at the top or at the bottom or somewhere at the edges of the image. And the only thing I have to do here is to go to filter, blur, and select Gaussian blur. And you can see here how cool this looks. Just this is just everything you have to do. And make sure it's like realistic blur instead of this. This is too much blur. It's hard to recognize what's even going on there. So try to use a blur that you can still recognize the image, but like blurred out so it doesn't mess the whole image up. Right? So let's do something like this. You can still see it's a tree here, maybe even a bit like this. So try to move the slider around till you got like the perfect spot for this blur. I think this is fine, maybe a bit less. So you can still see it's a tree like this. Then just press OK, and that's it. And you have created depth in your image. Now, don't ruin your image. Don't place it like this or something. You won't see anything anymore. Just use it like at the edges here. We can even move it a bit like this. I think this is cool. This looks fine. You can also use flowers and stuff like that. Usually when I use images like this, I go to Google and I search for tree PNG. And that's it. And you find a lot of PNG files or maybe flowers PNG. And you don't have to spend time on cutting them out. Maybe get rid of this part here so it doesn't mess up with this book here. Let's do it like this. You can brush a bit away if you want. All right, that's really easy. Maybe drop the color from it. It's a bit too green now. So I'm just gonna do some saturation to this. Get rid of that green. And that's it. And we have lighting here. You can also move the lighting on top of this. So it goes over this, over these tree here. But I think this looks fine. I'm not going to do that this time. Sometimes you have to move the lighting on top of these things to make it look more real. But I like this one. I'm going to leave it like this. Maybe a bit up. Like that. The next thing I would like to do here is to bring some life to this whole image. It feels a bit empty now, so we need to add some little details and stuff like that to make it look more real and better. So for this, I'm just gonna drag this file here, this image of these birds here, and just put it somewhere there. But they are a bit too black now, so the only thing I have to do here is to drop the opacity a bit and they blend better with this background because we have this lighting here and you don't want to have too much contrast in the background. When you have stuff in the background, it needs to be a little bit more like grayish, less visible than if you are close to the camera. Right, so let's also add some more images like this one. You can use anything that you want. If you search on Google for instance, birds PNG, you get a lot of different sites that you can just go to and download all these images without having to worry about removing backgrounds because that's really boring to do. And this is just really easy to make the whole image better. Right, so let's put maybe this bird here. And I have also these bushes here. This one we could use to make the book a bit more interesting. So for this, I'm gonna go here and put it underneath the book layer folder and press Ctrl T again, Command T to make this smaller. And let's put these bushes like around this book. Let's duplicate it with Ctrl J and let's fill up this whole area. Like at the edges of this book, like there's growing grass behind it. Bushes, whatever it is. Let's make maybe even bigger here. Just to fill this whole design up to make it more interesting to look at. When you have not much thing going on, it's not interesting to look. When you have a lot of stuff going on, you're gonna be a lot of longer watching the image, if that makes sense. So try to put all these little things in your design to make it look more cooler, more interesting to look at. So this is fine. Maybe also a bit here on this side. Just make sure you don't see it inside this book. So I have to brush it away there. Let's make some bushes here. Let's see. Maybe maybe something like this. Just a bit of these. And now I'm gonna rasterize this layer, right mouse rasterize, and then I can just get rid of this part. Don't need that part. All right, so these bushes here, they look a bit too fake. So what I'm gonna do now is hold down shift and select all these bushes and click on the folder to put it in this folder. This is our bushes. And now I can just create a hue and saturation layer on top of this folder. Press this so we only affect this folder. And let's drop the color here because it's way too green now for this design. And you can see here, that's really easy to fix that. Maybe a bit darker, like that. And I can see we have like life going on out in this image. Maybe move this a bit around like that. I think this looks fine. Let's use the burn tool. So with the burn tool, which you can find here, we can make areas darker, like brushing shadows. So for this, usually I do this separately on every layer, but I don't want to do this separately every layer now because the video is going to get really long and I don't want to waste your time here. So you can do this separately on every layer to do this better. But at this time, I'm going to create a new layer now on top of all the layers, and then go to edit, fill. And here you want to select 50% gray. So if we have a 50% gray layer, and we change the blend mode to overlay, we won't see the layer. We only see the stuff that we're doing inside the layer. So let's select the burn tool now. Make sure you have shadows here, let's say around 25%, and start brushing some areas darker. For instance, this center of this book, I want to have a bit more shadows here. So I'm gonna brush this a bit. We can make this even less than 25, maybe 15, like that. Also here at the bottom, all these little things to make this look more real here. Just imagine some parts where it should be a bit darker because there is not much light on those parts. Maybe here. Also, you can see these black areas from this grass. We can make them more black to make this look more real. So I'm also gonna brush this here, make it a bit smaller, brush it there, here, here. So just try to find these darker spots in your image and brush them a bit darker to create like better better effects, better shadows. And this will make the image look more dreamy, more real. Something like this, bit there. Maybe also here, bit on there. Just don't do too much, just a bit of this brushing. Right, so maybe here, maybe there. And that's it. Don't have to do this much. We have a bit more shadows now. And if we disable enable, as you can see here, it's get a bit darker. So usually I drop the opacity also so it doesn't get too dark. Right? So little things like that. All right, we have like a little bit empty space here and here. So what I could do here is to try to add different stuff, maybe animals or something like that. Or you can just do it quickly by this layer, select both of these layers, press Ctrl J, and let's add some here. Let's make this a bit darker, like that, and maybe even blur this out more. Let's give it a bit more blur, like this is even closer to the camera, like that. So we can fill this area a bit more up, so it doesn't look too empty. And now just duplicate these layers, maybe also on this side. So you can see here, it makes this image look like better quality in the point of focus. So we have our focus here and here. And if we create like this dark spots here, it makes this image look a bit more cooler, better quality, like that. Right? So this is fine. All right, now let's go to the final stage, and that is to make everything just perfect. So for the final stage, the only thing we have to do is to make sure first you have the design ready like you want to, because after this stage, it is not possible anymore to add stuff, or well, it is possible, but it's going to be difficult. So I do not recommend adding any more stuff after this stage. Right, so let's make this here. Let's go all the way up. So we create a new layer on top of all the layers and press Command Alt Shift E or Control Alt Shift E on Windows. So we have a duplicated version of everything. Then press right mouse, convert this to a smart object. And now we want to go to camera raw filter, which you can find at filter. Click on camera raw filter, and here we can set the lighting and everything like we want to. Let me zoom out here a bit because this is way too big now. Something like this, maybe 66. All right, and here we have all these settings. Yours might look a bit different if you have all the version of Photoshop, but you have all the same settings as I do. Now, first thing, let's play with the exposure here. If you have a bad screen, this is sometimes difficult to see what you're doing. So having a good screen really helps with creating better final result. So for the exposure, I want to drop it a bit to make it a bit more darker. And let's increase the contrast here a bit. Right, so let's also do the highlights here. Usually I just use these from left to right and see what changes. Let's give it a bit more highlights. Let's make the shadows a bit lighter. And the whites, this is like our light effect here. Let's give it a bit more. Let's see the blacks. Let's make the blacks a bit lighter so this doesn't get too dark. All right, so texture is also really interesting here because we can make the image look really soft if we drop it to the left and move this to the right to make sure the quality stays good. Right, so this looks pretty good. Now dehaze, we can make it a bit more darker. Let's leave the dehaze. All right, vibrance is for the colors. So if we want to make it more colorful, we can like really increase this. So this really depends on what you want to do with your image. If you want to have more colorful, bring this a bit up. I think this is fine. Let's not touch the curves. I like to do that separately, not here. And let's increase the sharpening a bit. You can see here the book really gets sharpened. So maybe leave it like this, or else the book gets too much attention. All right, going on to the color mixer here. This is really interesting because he can change the colors of everything. And let's see, usually I just move them from left to right to see what changes. And maybe I want to make this less green, but more like yellowish. So I'm gonna move the green like that way. Let's see what the other ones does. These are pretty much nothing. This is the sky. Let's make it a bit more purple. And then go to saturation and basically do the same. And here you can see we can make this really red if you want to, or you can do it like this. Let's leave it, give it a bit more red. And let's see the orange. This is also from our book. Let's move it to the left. Let's see what the yellow here. I think I want a bit more yellow. The greens, let's drop the greens a bit, the situation. Like that. This is fine. Let's leave that one. Let's move on. Luminance, usually I don't really touch because it messes up the image a lot. So let's leave the luminance. All right, let's move on to, let's see, vignette here at optics. So you have more focus on the center. You can give it a bit of a vignette. And let's also do this one. And the last one is the calibration. Here you can like change the color tones of everything. If you want to change something or be more creative, you can use these sliders to change it. Usually this is always fun to do to see how an image looks at the end. Maybe like this. Let's see. I think this one is fine. I'm gonna leave it like this, press OK, and you can see the difference. This was before, this after. It looks a lot better. I think it looks a lot better. All right, next thing to do is to create a curves on top of everything. And here you wanna move this one a little bit to the left. So we have more highlights. And let's move the midtones a bit there, like that. So this is not much, but just a bit more contrast. And if it's too much, drop the opacity here. Next one is, let's try to move the red here. So you can change here the color. Let's go to red. And the only thing I usually do is take the bottom one here and move it a bit to the left to see where this curve starts. Let's do the same for the green. And this will make the image overall better because the colors will be better like that. That's it. Next one is to add another adjustment layer and select color lookup. And here you have LUT files to make your image look different or more creative. You can just try out all these different LUTs. This will really change your image. Sometimes it ruins the image. Sometimes it makes it better. So try to just go through these if you want to try out different kind of color tones. But usually I use tree strip, and tree strip will give your image more colors. You can see here the difference, how cool this is. This was before and this after. We get all these nice colors now. But I don't want to have it too much. I still want to like have the original design and not too much changes. So it's something like this is fine. All right, next one is to go to here, adjustment layer, and also do color balance. Color balance also some important thing to do at the end to make your overall colors look better. Usually I move this one to the left a bit to get more cyan and some blue. And that's it. Sometimes you can also use this one, but for this one, I would leave it like this. So that is pretty much it. And you can always just try to add different stuff to your image to make it look better. But I just want to keep it simple. And I think this is easy to create, and just try out different things in Photoshop. Usually the best way to learn things is to press something and see what it does and press another thing and try to make different kind of adjustments and to see how your image looks. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. Don't forget to rate this class and share your work in this project, and I will be happy to reply to it. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good day.